Elias Carter slammed his janitor's mop against the glass wall of the server room and screamed at the $20 million machine blinking red in front of him. "You're wrong. The fault isn't in the code. It's in the cooling line, you idiots." Behind him, 3 engineers in $1,000 suits froze. One of them, a young man with a tablet, whispered, "Sir, you're just the janitor." Elias turned slowly, his shirt soaked with sweat, his name badge crooked, his hands trembling. "No," he said. "I used to build things like this, before your kind destroyed me." What no one in that room knew, not the engineers, not the security guards, not even the CEO watching on the monitor upstairs, was that the man holding the mop had once designed the very system they couldn't fix. And tonight, he was about to prove it. If you're watching from Dallas, Phoenix, or a quiet porch somewhere in Ohio, drop your city in the comments, so I know how far this story has traveled tonight. And if you believe a good man deserves a second chance, hit that subscribe button and stay with me till the very end. Because what happens in the next 2 hours will change the way you look at every invisible worker you've ever walked past. The alarm on the cracked flip phone buzzed at 9:47 p.m., and Elias Carter pressed it against his chest before it could wake his daughter. "Daddy, you're leaving already." Lily stood in the hallway of their 1-bedroom apartment, holding a worn paperback against her pajama shirt. She was 11, but her eyes looked older than that, the kind of eyes a child gets when she's watched her father lose too many things. "I'm leaving, sweetheart," Elias whispered. "Mrs. Alvarez is downstairs if you need anything. Don't open the door for anyone else." "I know, Dad." "And finish your homework before 10, I know." She walked over and wrapped her arms around his waist. "Dad." "Yeah, baby. You smell like bleach again." He laughed because if he didn't laugh, he'd cry, and he was done crying in front of her. "That's the smell of a man who works hard, Lily. That's the smell of a man who deserves better," she said, and kissed his cheek and walked back to her room without another word. Elias stood in that empty hallway for a long moment, one hand still on the doorknob, the other pressed flat against the water stain on the wall he kept meaning to paint over. 11 years old. And she talked like she was 40. That was his fault. He knew it was his fault. He grabbed his navy blue work jacket off the hook. Arden Systems Maintenance stitched in white across the chest and walked out into the Seattle rain. The bus ride took 47 minutes, and Elias rode it every weeknight. He sat in the back where the fluorescent light flickered, and he watched the city slide past the window in streaks of wet neon. Somewhere between the 3rd and 4th stop, a man in a suit got on the bus, typing furiously on a laptop, and Elias felt that old ache in his chest, the one that came every time he saw someone doing the work he used to do. 8 years ago, Elias Carter had been the lead electrical engineer on a federal defense contract worth $73 million. 8 years ago, he'd signed his name at the bottom of a design report he hadn't written. And 8 years ago, when the project failed and 2 men died in a fire at a testing facility in Nevada, every lawyer in the company pointed their finger at the same name on that report. Elias Carter. He didn't fight it. He didn't have the money to fight it. He had a wife battling stage 3 ovarian cancer and a 3-year-old daughter who needed her father home, not in court. So he took the blame side. The settlement lost his license, watched his wife die 18 months later, and told himself he'd rebuild from the bottom. The bottom, it turned out, was mopping floors for the same kind of company that had destroyed him. "Carter." The bus driver glanced up in the mirror. "Your stop." "Thank you, Raymond." "Hang in there, brother." Elias stepped off into the rain, and the glass towers of downtown Seattle rose up around him like a canyon made of money. He pulled his hood up and started walking. The Arden Systems building was 41 stories of black glass and white light, and every night for the last 2 years, Elias had walked through the service entrance in the back, swiped his maintenance badge, and disappeared into the bones of the building where nobody cared to look. "Carter, you're 2 minutes late." The night supervisor, a heavy-set man named Dale, didn't even look up from his clipboard. "Bus was slow, Dale." "Bus is always slow. Get another bus." Yes, sir. Dale finally looked up, his eyes small and mean under a buzz cut. Server rooms tonight. Whole 17th floor. They've got some kind of situation up there, so stay out of the engineer's way. You clean, you don't talk, you don't look at the screens. Understand? Understood. And Carter. Yeah. The CEO's in the building tonight. Miss Hale herself. If you see her, you get out of her way. You don't speak to her. You don't even breathe in her direction. That woman eats men like us for breakfast. Elias nodded and grabbed his cart. The elevator ride up to the 17th floor took 19 seconds, and in those 19 seconds, Elias did what he always did. He closed his eyes, pressed his forehead against the cool metal wall, and said his wife's name out loud. Sarah. Just once, like a prayer. Then the doors opened, and he pushed his cart out into the hallway. The 17th floor was quiet except for the hum. That hum. Elias had noticed it 3 weeks ago, the first time they'd sent him up here. Most people wouldn't hear it. Most people didn't know how to listen to a building the way an engineer listened to a building. But Elias heard it. A low, uneven vibration under the baseboards coming from the direction of the server room. Too low, too slow. Wrong frequency for a cooling system running at spec. He'd tried to tell the day shift supervisor. He'd written a note and left it on the desk. The note had ended up in the trash. He'd seen it there the next night when he emptied the bin. Now 3 weeks later, the hum was louder. Get out of here, man! Elias looked up. A young engineer, maybe 28, wire-rimmed glasses hair, sticking up like he hadn't slept in 2 days, was standing in the doorway of the server room, waving him off. I'm just here to clean, sir. Well, don't. Come back tomorrow. We've got a situation. Behind the young engineer, Elias could see 3 other people hunched over terminals, their faces lit blue by the screens. On the main display, a single line of red text kept scrolling. Atlas core fault. Unresolved runtime. Failure imminent. Elias's breath caught. Atlas. The AI platform Arden had been developing for 18 months. The flagship product. The thing Victoria Hale had bet her entire company on. And it was dying. Sir, Elias said quietly. How long has it been doing that? The young engineer looked up sharply. What? The fault message. How long? That's none of your business. Go clean somewhere else. 4 days. The engineer's face changed. How did you? Because I can hear the cooling line from out here, son. And if you don't fix the flow pressure on the secondary loop in the next 6 hours, the whole rack is going into thermal shutdown and you're going to lose everything you've built on those drives. The room went dead silent. 4 heads turned toward him. Elias felt his own pulse in his throat. Who the hell are you? The young engineer said. Nobody. I'm nobody. I'm sorry. I'll go. He grabbed his cart and turned. Wait. It was a different voice. Older. A woman's voice, low and tired. Elias looked back. She'd been sitting in the corner the whole time, and he hadn't seen her. Mid-50s, silver hair cut short, a gray cashmere sweater over black slacks. A half-empty coffee cup in front of her. She wasn't typing. She was just watching. Say that again, she said. Ma'am, say that again. Elias swallowed. The hum on the 17th floor. The cooling loop's secondary pump is running out of phase with the primary. It's not a software fault. Your team keeps looking at the software because the error code points there, but the error code is lying to you. The temperature reading is off because the sensor downstream of the secondary pump is compensating for the cavitation. It's a mechanical problem masquerading as a code problem. That's why nothing you've tried for 4 days has worked. Nobody spoke. The young engineer's mouth was open. The woman in the corner stood up slowly. Carter, she said, reading the name off his chest patch. Elias Carter. Yes, ma'am. How long have you worked here? 2 years and 4 months. And before that? Elias hesitated. Before that, ma'am, I was something else. Victoria Hale, because he knew now who she was. He'd been an idiot not to recognize her, tilted her head, and looked at him the way a person looks at a painting they suspect is a forgery or a masterpiece, and they haven't decided which. "Put the mop down, Mr. Carter," she said. "And come tell me exactly what you just told my team. Slowly, from the beginning." "Ma'am, I'm not supposed to—" "I'm the one who decides what you're supposed to do in this building, Mr. Carter. Put the mop down." Elias's hands were shaking as he set the mop against the cart. He hadn't spoken to anyone in a room like this in 8 years. Not since the deposition. Not since the lawyers had asked him to confirm his signature, and he'd said yes, and he'd felt his whole life tip sideways and fall off a table. He followed Victoria Hale to the central terminal. "Show me," she said. "Don't touch anything. Just tell my team where to look. Your secondary pump. Rack C second from the bottom. If someone opens the service panel and puts a hand on the return line, they'll feel it. It's not a steady vibration. It's a pulse 2 beats, pause 1 beat. Classic cavitation pattern. There's air in the coolant." "Morrison," Victoria said, not taking her eyes off Elias. "Go check." The young engineer bolted out of the room. "Keep talking, Mr. Carter. Once you confirm cavitation, you've got 2 problems. The short-term problem is you have to bleed the line and rebalance the pressure between primary and secondary. That'll stop the immediate fault. The long-term problem is that whoever installed this system put the bypass valve on the wrong side of the manifold. It's going to keep happening every 6 to 8 weeks until you replumb it. That's why your system has been unstable since day 1. It's not the AI, it's the plumbing." Victoria's face did not change. But a woman next to her, a thin black woman in her 40s with a lanyard that read CTO, let out a breath that sounded almost like a laugh. "Victoria," the CTO said quietly. "He's right. I told you 6 months ago the install was wrong. You told me it might be wrong, Dr. Yamada. I'm telling you now, it is wrong." From the hallway there was a shout, Morrison's voice. "Sir, ma'am, it's the pump. The return line is pulsing. He's right." Victoria Hale closed her eyes for 3 full seconds. When she opened them, she looked at Elias like she was seeing him for the first time. "Mr. Carter," she said, "who taught you how to listen to a building like that?" "My father, ma'am. He was a machinist in Tacoma. He used to say every machine in the world is trying to tell you what's wrong with it. Most people just don't bother to listen." "And where did you go to school?" "MIT, ma'am. Class of 2004. Electrical engineering and computer systems dual major." The room went silent again. Dr. Yamada's head snapped around. "I'm sorry," she said. "Did you just say MIT?" "Yes, ma'am." "And you're mopping my floors?" "Yes, ma'am." Victoria Hale held up a hand. "Everyone out," she said. "Dr. Yamada, stay. Mr. Carter, sit down." "Ma'am, my shift." "Your shift is over. Sit down, Mr. Carter. We're going to have a conversation." Elias sat in a leather chair that cost more than 3 months of his rent. Across from him, Victoria Hale folded her hands on the table and studied his face. "Mr. Carter," she said, "I'm going to ask you a question, and I need you to tell me the truth. Because in about 90 seconds, I'm going to run your name through a background check, and if you lie to me now, this conversation is over. Do you understand?" "Yes, ma'am." "Are you currently licensed to practice engineering in the state of Washington?" "No, ma'am." "Why not?" Elias stared at his hands. The knuckles were raw from bleach. The nails were cracked. "Because 8 years ago," he said, "I signed a report I shouldn't have signed. 2 men died, and I didn't have the money to prove it wasn't my work." Victoria didn't blink. "Whose work was it?" "I'd rather not say, ma'am." "Mr. Carter, I am offering you the chance to walk out of this room tonight with your life back. But I will not be lied to, and I will not work with a man who cannot tell me the truth. Whose work was it?" Elias looked up. "My supervisor's, ma'am. A man named Richard Vance. He's a vice president now at a competitor of yours. You probably know him." Victoria's jaw tightened, just for a second, but Elias saw it. "I know Richard Vance. she said quietly. Yes, I know him very well. She stood up and walked to the window. Seattle stretched out below her in a grid of yellow and white light, the Space Needle glowing in the distance, the rain streaking sideways across the glass. For a long time she didn't speak. Then, without turning around, she said, Mr. Carter, my grandfather started this company in 1962 with $3,000 and a workshop behind his garage. He used to tell me that the most important employee in any building was the night janitor because the night janitor was the only person who saw the building the way it actually was. Empty, quiet, broken in the places nobody wanted to fix. She turned around. She turned. I didn't believe him. For 40 years, I didn't believe him. I believed in credentials. I believed in pedigrees. I believed in the system. She walked back to the table and leaned forward on her knuckles. Tonight, Mr. Carter, you walked into a room full of men and women with doctorates from Stanford and Carnegie Mellon, and you solved in 90 seconds a problem that has cost me 4 days, 1 board meeting, and $12 million in delayed deliverables. Do you understand what I'm telling you? I think so, ma'am. I don't think you do. So let me be plain. I do not care what the state of Washington says about your license. I do not care what Richard Vance put in a report 8 years ago. I care about what I saw with my own eyes tonight. And what I saw tonight was the best systems engineer in this building wearing a maintenance jacket and carrying a mop. Elias couldn't breathe. Ma'am? Dr. Yamada. Yes, Victoria. Tomorrow morning, 9 a.m. I want Mr. Carter in my office with HR, legal, and your entire engineering team. I want a full technical interview. If he's everything he appears to be, I want him on the Atlas project by end of week as a consulting systems architect reporting directly to you. Double whatever Morrison is making. And I want our legal team to pull the original incident report from the Nevada fire. All of it. Victoria, that's... I know what it is, Dr. Yamada. Do it anyway. Yes, ma'am. Victoria Hale looked back at Elias. Mr. Carter, she said, do you have a daughter? Yes, ma'am. Her name is Lily. She's 11. And does Lily know what her father used to be? Elias felt his throat close. She knows I used to be somebody, he whispered. She just doesn't know what. Then I suggest, Victoria Hale said, that tomorrow morning before you come to my office, you sit down with your daughter at breakfast, and you tell her that her father is about to be somebody again. Elias Carter walked out of the Arden Systems building at 11:52 p.m. He walked past the service entrance where he was supposed to clock out, and he didn't clock out. He walked right through the front lobby, past the marble floors he'd mopped 100 times, past the security guard who nodded at him without really seeing him, and out into the rain. He stood on the sidewalk with his maintenance jacket hanging open and the Seattle rain running down his face, and for the first time in 8 years, he didn't know what to feel. His phone buzzed in his pocket. A text from Lily. Dad, are you okay? You're usually home by 11. Elias stared at the message for a long time. Then he typed back with shaking fingers. Baby, I'm fine. I'm more than fine. Wait up for me. I have something to tell you. He put the phone away. He turned his face up to the rain. And somewhere 41 stories above him, in a black glass tower that ran on money and ambition. Victoria Hale was already on the phone with her legal team, her voice low and steady, saying 3 words that would change Elias Carter's life forever. Pull the file. The bus back to the apartment was empty at midnight. Elias sat in the same back row he always sat in, but he didn't see the rain on the window. He didn't see the reflections of his own face. He was staring at the phone in his hand, at the last text from his daughter, reading it over and over like it might disappear. Wait up for me. I have something to tell you. He had typed those words with shaking fingers, and now he didn't know what he was going to say when he walked through that door. Hey, brother. Raymond the bus driver glanced in the mirror. You look different tonight, Carter. Do I? Yeah. You look like a man who just saw a ghost. Maybe I did, Raymond. Good ghost or bad ghost? Elias thought about that for a long moment. I don't know yet. The bus hissed to a stop on the corner of 12th and Yesler, and Elias stepped off into the rain. He walked the 3 blocks home slower than usual, his hands deep in his jacket pockets, his head down. He passed the 24-hour diner, where he sometimes bought Lily a slice of pie on payday. He passed the laundromat with the flickering sign. He passed the pawn shop where 2 years ago he had sold his wedding ring to pay the electric bill. He stopped in front of that pawn shop, and for the first time in a long time he thought maybe, just maybe, he was going to walk past it one day soon and buy that ring back. "Dad?" Lily was waiting on the second-floor landing when he came through the door, still in her pajamas, her hair a mess of dark curls, a thick book pressed against her chest. "Baby, what are you doing up? It's past midnight." "You told me to wait up." "I know, but—" "Dad." She came down 3 steps and stopped. Her voice dropped. "Are you in trouble?" "No, sweetheart." "Did you lose your job?" "No." "Then why does your face look like that?" Elias set his bag down on the landing and sat on the top step. He patted the space next to him, and she came and sat down, curling her legs up under her nightshirt, the way she had done since she was 5. "Lily," he said, "do you remember what I used to do before we moved here? You were a scientist." "Not a scientist, an engineer." "What's the difference? A scientist asks why. An engineer asks how. A scientist wonders about the stars. An engineer builds the rocket that gets you there." "Okay." She tilted her head against his shoulder. "So you used to build rockets?" He laughed, and it came out a little broken. "Not exactly. I used to design systems, big ones, power systems, computer systems, systems that kept people safe." "Why did you stop?" Elias took a long breath. "Because somebody lied, baby. Somebody with more money and more power than me told a lie about something I did, and I didn't have the strength to fight it. Your mom was sick. You were little. I chose you and your mother over my career, and I've never regretted that choice, not even for 1 second. But tonight? Tonight what? Tonight, something happened at work. Good something or bad something. I don't know yet, but there's a woman at the company. She's the boss. The biggest boss of the whole building. And tonight, she watched me fix something, and she asked me to come to her office tomorrow morning." Lily sat up straight. "Dad? What baby? Are you going to be an engineer again?" Elias looked at his daughter, and he saw Sarah in her face, the same quiet, searching expression her mother used to get when she was trying to figure out whether he was telling the truth or being brave. "I don't know, Lily. I don't want to promise you something I can't give you." "Dad?" "Yeah. You haven't promised me anything in a long time." "I know, sweetheart. Maybe it's okay to promise me one thing." He put his arm around her shoulders and pulled her close, and he pressed his lips to the top of her head, and he whispered into her hair. "I promise I'm going to walk into that office tomorrow morning and I'm going to tell the truth. And whatever happens after that, I promise it's going to be better than what came before." She was quiet for a long time. Then she said, "Dad, can I ask you something and you won't get mad?" "I won't get mad. When they asked you to sign that thing, the bad thing, why didn't you say no?" Elias closed his eyes. "Because I was afraid, baby. Because your mom was in a hospital bed and the medicine cost more money than I had, and the man who wanted me to sign it told me I would lose my job if I didn't. And I thought losing my job was the worst thing in the world." "Was it?" "No, the worst thing in the world was losing who I was, and I lost that anyway. I just lost it slower." She reached up and took his hand. "Dad, tomorrow. Don't lose who you are again." "No, Lily, I won't." They sat on the landing for another 10 minutes, neither one of them talking, the rain drumming against the roof above them. And when Elias finally carried her to bed, she was already half asleep, mumbling something about a boss and a building and rockets. He set the alarm for 6 in the morning. He didn't sleep. At 5:45, he got up and ironed the only button-down shirt he owned, a pale blue one with a frayed collar. He shaved with the razor Lily had bought him for Father's Day 2 years earlier. He polished his shoes with a rag and a bottle of cheap shoe polish from under the sink. And at 6:30, when Lily came out of her room rubbing her eyes, she stopped in the hallway and just stared at him. "Dad," she whispered. "Yeah. You look like a dad in a picture." He turned around. Good picture or bad picture? A picture where the dad is about to go do something important. He walked over and kissed her forehead. "Eat your cereal, baby. Mrs. Alvarez is going to take you to school today. I have to go early." "Dad." "Yeah." "Call me when it's over. Even if I'm in class, they'll let me take it in the office." "Okay, baby. I'll call you." At 7:45, Elias Carter walked into the lobby of the Arden Systems building through the front door for the first time in 2 years and 4 months. The security guard at the front desk, a big man named Terrence, who had always been kind to him, looked up from his coffee and blinked twice. "Carter, you wearing a tie?" "Good morning, Terrence." "Brother, what in the world are you doing walking through the front?" "I have a meeting with Miss Hale." Terrence set his coffee down. "Say that one more time." "I have a meeting on the 41st floor at 9 o'clock with the CEO." "Carter, you messing with me?" "No, sir." Terrence stared at him for a long beat. Then he picked up the phone, dialed a number, and said, "Front desk. I've got a gentleman down here who says he has a 9 o'clock with Miss Hale. Name is Elias Carter." "Yes. Yes, that Carter. Understood." He hung up and looked at Elias with something that was almost awe. "They've been expecting you for 20 minutes, Mr. Carter. 41st floor, express elevator. You go right up." "Thank you, Terrence." "Mr. Carter." "Yeah." "Whatever happened last night, brother, don't let them take it from you." Elias nodded once, and he walked across the marble floor he had mopped 100 times, and he stepped into the express elevator, and he pressed the button marked 41. The doors closed, and for the first time in 8 years, Elias Carter rode an elevator up in a building instead of down. The 41st floor was a different world. Pale wood floors, floor-to-ceiling windows, the low hum of people who had never had to worry about rent. A young woman in a gray suit was waiting for him by the elevator. "Mr. Carter, I'm Priya. I'll take you to the conference room." "Thank you." "They're all already in there. I should tell you it's a little crowded." "How crowded?" 8 people. HR legal, 3 engineers, Dr. Yamada and Miss Hale. Elias felt his pulse jump in his throat. "Mr. Carter." "Yeah. Whatever you said to her last night, she hasn't stopped talking about it since. Just be yourself." "That's the problem, Priya. I'm not sure I remember who that is." She smiled at him. "Then figure it out in the next 30 seconds. That's the door." He walked into the conference room, and 8 faces turned to look at him. Victoria Hale was at the head of the table, a folder open in front of her, a pair of reading glasses perched on her nose. Dr. Yamada sat on her right. To her left was a woman in a navy suit he didn't know with a legal pad full of notes. The young engineer from last night, Morrison, was at the far end of the table looking slightly terrified. "Mr. Carter," Victoria said. "Please, sit." "Good morning, ma'am." "Good morning. Please understand this is not a job interview in the traditional sense. This is a technical examination. My team is going to ask you a series of questions. Some of them will be easy. Some of them will be designed to embarrass you. I want you to answer them honestly, and if you don't know the answer, I want you to say so. Is that clear?" "Yes, ma'am." "Dr. Yamada, you may begin." Dr. Yamada leaned forward. "Mr. Carter, explain to me in your own words what a closed-loop cooling system is and why it fails." A closed-loop cooling system moves a fluid, usually glycol or treated water, in a continuous circuit through a heat exchanger to remove heat from electronic components. It fails for 3 main reasons in my experience: contamination of the coolant, mechanical failure of the pump or impeller, or installation error, specifically improper venting, which causes cavitation. Last night you had reason number 3. And the industry standard for bypass valve placement on a secondary manifold, upstream of the primary heat load. Your installer put it downstream. Why does that matter? Because downstream the valve is trying to regulate pressure after the heat has already been absorbed, which means your sensor readings are always chasing a number that's already changed. It's like trying to steer a car by looking at where you were a second ago. Dr. Yamada glanced at Victoria. Victoria didn't move. Mr. Carter, Dr. Yamada continued, describe to me the architecture of a neural net designed to run inference across a distributed GPU cluster. Elias smiled just a little. Dr. Yamada, I've been out of the industry for 8 years. I know what a neural net was in 2017. I can't tell you what yours looks like today. But I can tell you this. No matter how fancy the software is, it still runs on silicon. And silicon still gets hot. And hot, silicon still fails the same way it did in 1995. That's why your Atlas kept dying. Not because your code was wrong, because the hardware underneath it was screaming for help, and nobody in this building knew how to listen. The woman in the navy suit, the lawyer wrote something down. Morrison at the end of the table leaned forward. Mr. Carter, I have a question. Go ahead, son. Last night when I told you to leave, you didn't. Why? Because the error message on your screen was going to cost this company $50 million in the next 72 hours, and I didn't want to read about it in the newspaper next Sunday. But you didn't know us. We were strangers. Son, I've been mopping this floor for 2 years. You're not strangers. I've seen you work late every Tuesday and Thursday. I've seen you eat bad cafeteria food and drink bad coffee and argue with your girlfriend on the phone in the stairwell. I know your names. You just never knew mine. The room went very still. Morrison looked down at the table. I'm sorry, Mr. Carter. Don't be sorry, son. Just remember it. Victoria Hale took off her glasses. Mr. Carter, there is one more question I need to ask you. And I want you to understand that the answer to this question will determine how the next 10 minutes of this meeting unfold. Yes, ma'am. She slid the folder across the table. Do you know what this is? Elias looked at the cover. A red seal, a federal case number, and a name he hadn't seen written down in almost a decade. State of Nevada versus Carter, Elias M. Yes, ma'am, I know what that is. My legal team spent the last 6 hours pulling every document associated with this case. The original report, the depositions, the settlement, the internal Arden memos from the competitor where this happened. Mr. Carter, I want you to look me in the eye and tell me the truth one more time. Did you design the system that failed in Nevada? No, ma'am. Who did? Richard Vance, my supervisor. He was behind schedule on his deliverable, and he asked me to put my signature on the final design report so that his name would be protected if there was an audit. I trusted him. I shouldn't have. And when the system failed, he told the investigators that I had done the work independently. He produced emails I never sent, that appeared to show me making the design decisions unilaterally. I know now that he fabricated them. At the time, I couldn't prove it. My wife was dying. I had a 3-year-old. I didn't have the money or the time to fight a federal investigation, so I signed a settlement that prohibited me from practicing engineering in the state of Nevada, and 2 states followed suit. I lost my license. I lost my career. And I've been paying for that man's mistake ever since. Victoria Hale closed the folder. Mr. Carter, she said quietly, I want you to know something. And I want you to know that I'm telling you this not as a CEO, but as a woman who has spent 34 years in an industry that eats men like you for breakfast. Yes, ma'am. Richard Vance tried to get a job at this company 4 years ago. I interviewed him personally. Within 10 minutes, I knew he was a liar. I didn't know what he had lied about. I just knew the way you know. And I did not hire him. He now works for my largest competitor, and every quarter I watch him burn them down a little more, one bad decision at a time. Elias didn't breathe. There's something else, Mr. Carter. Ma'am, the Nevada incident, the fire, the 2 men who died. Do you know their names? Yes, ma'am. Thomas Reyes, Michael Chen. I think about them every single day. Thomas Reyes was my cousin, Mr. Carter. Elias felt the floor drop out from under him. Ma'am, let me finish. Thomas Reyes was my cousin, my mother's sister's son. He He was 28 years old, and he had a baby girl, and he died in a fire that everyone told me was caused by an engineer named Elias Carter. For 8 years, I have hated the name Elias Carter. For 8 years, I have wanted to find that man and look him in the face and ask him how he could sleep at night. Elias couldn't speak. And then last night, Victoria said, her voice going strange and tight, I watched you stand in my server room exhausted, underpaid, invisible, and save my company $50 million. And I asked for your name. And when you said Elias Carter, I thought I was going to be sick. Ma'am, I swear to you, I know Mr. Carter. I know. Because Richard Vance works for my competitor, and because I've had my people looking into him for 3 years, and because 6 months ago, one of my investigators came to me with a transcript of a conversation he had with a former Arden engineer at a bar in Reno. And in that transcript, Richard Vance, drunk, bragged about a man named Carter, whose life he had ruined in Nevada in 2017. My investigator wrote it down word for word, Mr. Carter. I have the transcript. I have been holding it for 6 months, waiting for the right moment to do something with it. Ma'am? Mr. Carter. Last night, God or fate or the ghost of Thomas Reyes walked a janitor into my server room and put the answer to a question I have been asking for 8 years directly in front of my face. Victoria Hale stood up. She walked around the table, and she did something no one in that conference room had ever seen her do. She extended her hand to the man in the pale blue button-down shirt with the frayed collar. Mr. Carter, she said, my name is Victoria Hale. I am the CEO of Arden Systems. I am offering you the position of Senior Systems Architect on the Atlas project, reporting directly to Dr. Yamada with a starting salary of $240,000 a year, full benefits for you and your daughter, and the full legal resources of this company to reopen the Nevada case and clear your name. Elias stared at her hand. His own hand was shaking. He stood up slowly, and he took hers. Ma'am, he said, I don't know what to say. Say yes, Mr. Carter. Yes. Say it again. Yes, ma'am. I accept. She held on to his hand for a long moment, and then quietly, so only he could hear, Thomas would have wanted this, Mr. Carter. I believe that. I believe he would have wanted me to find the truth. And I believe he would have wanted you to be the one to help me finish what Richard Vance started by destroying him. Elias swallowed hard. Ma'am, if we go after Richard Vance, he's going to come after my daughter. Victoria Hale's eyes narrowed. Mr. Carter, listen to me very carefully. Your daughter is now under the protection of a company with $17 billion in annual revenue and a security apparatus that rivals most small governments. Richard Vance will not touch your daughter. Richard Vance will not touch you. Richard Vance will not touch anything you love ever again. Do you understand me? Yes, ma'am. Welcome to Arden, Mr. Carter. He sat back down in his chair because his knees wouldn't hold him anymore. Across the table, Morrison was crying silently, wiping his face with his sleeve, and Dr. Yamada was smiling in a way Elias suspected she did not smile often, and the lawyer in the navy suit was already pulling another folder out of her briefcase. Victoria Hale returned to her seat and put her glasses back on. Now, she said, let's talk about Richard Vance. The lawyer in the navy suit opened her folder and slid 3 pages across the table to Elias. Mr. Carter, my name is Catherine Okafor. I'm the general counsel for Arden Systems. What you're looking at is a preliminary summary of our file on Richard Vance. Before we go any further, I need you to understand something. We are not asking you to testify against this man. We are not asking you to file a lawsuit. You are an employee now, and your job is to build Atlas. What happens to Richard Vance is a separate matter that will be handled by this company and its attorneys. Do you understand the distinction? Ma'am, he destroyed my life. Yes, Mr. Carter, he did, and we are going to destroy his. But we are going to do it the right way, which means slowly, legally, and so thoroughly that he will never work in this industry again. You do not need to be in the room when that happens. You need to be in the server room making Atlas work. That's the deal. Is that deal acceptable to you? Elias looked down at the pages. The first page was a summary of Richard Vance's current employment, Senior Vice President of Engineering at a company called Kestrel Dynamics, a defense contractor that was Arden's largest rival. The second page was a list of federal contracts Kestrel had won in the last 3 years, each one worth hundreds of millions of dollars. The third page was a photograph of Richard Vance at a charity gala, his arm around a much younger woman, a glass of champagne in his other hand. He looked exactly the way Elias remembered him. Silver hair, tanned face, the same small, mean mouth. "Mr. Carter," Catherine said quietly, "is the deal acceptable?" Elias closed the folder. "Yes, ma'am. It's acceptable." "Good. Then from this moment forward, you will not contact Richard Vance. You will not speak about him publicly. You will not respond to any messages he sends you. If he contacts you in any way, you will forward that communication directly to me. Is that clear?" "Yes, ma'am." "Welcome to the team." Victoria Hale stood up. "Dr. Yamada, Mr. Carter is yours. Please take him to his office. Priya will handle the paperwork. Mr. Carter, I'll see you at the all-hands meeting at 4 o'clock this afternoon. Wear what you're wearing. I want every person in this building to see exactly what showed up here this morning." "Ma'am, I don't—" "That wasn't a request, Mr. Carter." "Yes, ma'am." She walked out of this conference room without another word, and the air in the room seemed to rush back in after her. Dr. Yamada leaned back in her chair and let out a long breath. "Well," she said, "that was the most interesting Tuesday morning I've had in 20 years. Dr. Yamada, Call me Kenji. Everybody does. And before you thank me, I want you to know something. I don't care about Richard Vance. I don't care about Nevada. I care about Atlas. I have been running this project for 18 months, and I have been losing. Last night you walked into my server room and saw something my entire team has missed for 4 days. So I don't care if you used to sell hot dogs in Tacoma. You're going to help me finish Atlas, and you're going to do it in the next 90 days, because that's when we ship. Is that understood?" "Yes, Doctor, yes, Kenji." "Good. Priya, take him down to the 14th floor. Get him a badge, a laptop, a phone, and an office. The corner office on the east side. The one we were saving for the hire we never made." "Kenji, that's the $300,000 office." "Yes, it is." Priya nodded and held the door open. "Mr. Carter." "Yeah." "Please come with me." Elias stood up. His legs didn't quite work right. Morrison, the young engineer at the end of the table, half stood as he passed and reached out a hand. "Sir," he said, "I want to apologize again for last night." "Son, what's your first name?" "Kyle. Kyle Morrison." "Kyle, stop apologizing. You're going to be working with me for the next 90 days and I need you sharp, not sorry. Last night is over. Starting now, you call me Elias and we figure out Atlas together." "Deal." "Deal, sir. I mean, Elias, deal." Elias followed Priya out of the conference room, down a long hallway lined with photographs of satellites and server farms, and into an elevator that carried them down to the 14th floor. "Mr. Carter," Priya said as the elevator descended, "there's something you should probably know before you walk onto this floor." "What's that?" "People have been talking since 6 in the morning. The story is already everywhere. About the janitor who walked into the server room last night." "Oh, Lord." "Most of them think it's a rumor. When they see you, they're going to know it isn't. How do you feel about it, Priya?" She looked at him for a long moment. "My father was a machinist in Oakland, Mr. Carter. He could rebuild a Ford transmission in 4 hours flat. He died 3 years ago of lung cancer. And the last thing he said to me was that there are 2 kinds of people in the world, people who make things and people who take credit for the things other people make. He told me to always work for the first kind." The doors opened onto the 14th floor. "I think I just started working for the first kind, Mr. Carter." He stepped out of the elevator. The entire floor went silent. 47 engineers, designers, project managers. Every single one of them turned to look at him. Elias Carter, in a pale blue button-down with a frayed collar shoes. He had polished himself with a rag from under his sink, a tie he had borrowed from the back of a closet where Sarah's old things still hung. Walked through that silence, the way a man walks through deep water, one foot in front of the other, his eyes fixed on the far wall. Priya walked beside him. "Keep going, Mr. Carter," she said under her breath. "Don't look at them. Just walk." "Priya, I don't belong on this floor." "Yes, you do. You just don't believe it yet." She led him to a corner office with floor-to-ceiling windows on two sides. Puget Sound stretching out blue and gray beyond the glass. A clean oak desk, a black leather chair, and a brass nameplate on the door. The nameplate was blank. "They'll have your name on it by tomorrow morning," Priya said. "What would you like it to say?" Elias stared at the blank plate. For 8 years, no nameplate. For 8 years, no desk. For 8 years, a patch on his chest that said maintenance and nothing else. "Elias M. Carter," he said quietly. "Senior Systems Architect." "Yes, sir." "Priya." "Yes, sir." "I need to make a phone call." "Your office phone is on the desk, sir. Line 2 is your direct line. Dial 9 for an outside call." He waited until she closed the door behind her. Then he sat down in the leather chair, and he picked up the phone, and he called the main office of his daughter's middle school. "Washington Middle School, this is Ms. Reyes." "Ms. Reyes, this is Elias Carter. I'm Lily Carter's father. I apologize for calling in the middle of the day. Is there any way you could pull her out of class for just a minute so I could speak with her?" "Mr. Carter, is everything all right?" "Yes, ma'am. Everything's fine. I promised her I would call her and I gave her my word." "Hold the line, Mr. Carter. I'll walk her down right now." He waited. His hand shook on the receiver. Through the glass wall of his new office, he could see the engineers on the 14th floor pretending not to watch him. "Dad." Her voice was small and cautious. "Lily." "Dad, what happened? Are you okay?" "Baby, listen to me." "You're scaring me." "Lily, listen. I want you to sit down wherever you are and take a breath." "I am sitting down, Dad. I'm in the office." "Okay, baby. Okay. I'm going to tell you something and I need you to believe me because I've never lied to you in your whole life, not once." "I know, Dad." "Lily, your daddy is an engineer again." There was a long silence on the other end of the line. Then she said in a voice so quiet he almost missed it. "For real? For real, baby?" "They gave you your job back. They gave me a new job, a better job, a real one, with a desk." He laughed through his tears. "With a desk, baby. With a window. With my name on the door." She started crying. He could hear her trying to muffle it against her sleeve, the same way she cried when her mother died, the same way she had cried when the landlord put a notice on their apartment door the year before, the same way she had cried 1,000 nights since. But this crying was different. "Lily, Lily, honey, don't cry." "Dad, I'm not sad. I'm not sad, Dad. I can't stop." "I know, baby. I know." "Dad." "Yeah. Does this mean we can move?" He closed his eyes. "Yeah, baby. It means a lot of things. It means we can move. It means you can have a real room with a real desk. It means we can go to the grocery store and not look at the prices. It means Mrs. Alvarez doesn't have to watch you at night anymore because I'm going to be home for dinner." "Dad?" "Yeah, I have to go back to class." "Okay, sweetheart." "But Dad?" "Yeah. Thank you for calling me. Thank you for keeping your promise. I'll always keep my promises to you, Lily. From now on, I swear to God." "I love you, Dad. I love you, baby." He set the phone down. He sat at the desk in his new office with the sun coming through the windows and Puget Sound rolling blue beyond the glass, and he put his face in his hands, and he cried the way a man cries when he hasn't been allowed to cry in 8 years. When he looked up, Dr. Yamada was standing in the doorway. She didn't say anything. She just walked over, set a cup of coffee on his desk, and sat down in the chair across from him. "Elias," she said quietly, "we need to talk about Atlas." "Yes, ma'am. And I need you to put away whatever you just felt, because I need your brain now and I need it clean. Can you do that?" "Yes, ma'am." "Good." She pulled a laptop out of the bag on her shoulder and opened it on his desk. Atlas is dying, Elias. Last night's fix bought us maybe 72 hours. We bled the cooling line, we rebalanced the pressure, and we got the system back online. But you were right about the manifold. The bypass valve is on the wrong side. Which means in about 8 days we're going to be right back where we were last night, except worse, because the cavitation damages the impellers a little more each time it happens. How much worse? If we don't fix the plumbing, the primary pump is going to fail catastrophically inside of 3 weeks. And when that pump fails, we lose not just the Atlas build, but 16 months of training data on those drives. Kenji, you're telling me the most valuable asset in this building is sitting on drives being cooled by a system with a design flaw that will kill it in 21 days. I'm telling you exactly that. Why haven't you replumbed it? She looked at him for a long moment. Because the company that installed it is a contractor called Kestrel Industrial Solutions. Elias felt the blood go out of his face. Kestrel. A subsidiary, different division, same parent. Richard Vance. Richard Vance does not run Kestrel Industrial Solutions, but he sits on the board. And 6 months ago, when I asked for a replumb, he personally signed a letter refusing to send a crew on the grounds that we were operating the system outside of its specified parameters, which is corporate lawyer speak for, I know it's broken and I'm going to let it fail. He sabotaged you. He let us sabotage ourselves by trusting his installation. It's not the same thing legally, but yes. In practice, he sabotaged us. So we bring in another contractor. We can't. The Kestrel contract has an exclusivity clause on any modifications to the coolant system for the first 5 years of operation. We are locked in with them until 2029, or we void the warranty on the entire installation and assume all liability, which is approximately $80 million. Jesus, Kenji. Yeah. Elias stood up. He walked to the window. He looked out at the sound. Okay, he said. Okay, think. I've been thinking for 6 months, Elias. I can't see a way out. There's always a way out, Kenji. It just requires being willing to do something the people who wrote the contract didn't expect you to do. Like what? Elias turned around. Like me. I'm not in the contract. Nobody writing that contract 6 months ago imagined that Arden Systems would have on staff an engineer capable of replumbing that manifold without voiding the warranty. If the modification is done by an Arden employee with appropriate credentials under Arden's own operational authority for the purposes of preventive maintenance, not modification, then Kestrel's exclusivity clause doesn't apply. Preventive maintenance is exempt in every standard industrial contract I've ever read, and I've read a lot of them. Elias. Yeah, you don't have appropriate credentials. Your license was revoked. In Nevada, and 2 states that followed. Not in Washington. In Washington, I was never disciplined because I never practiced here before the incident. Washington state law requires a professional engineer stamp for public works, but this is a private installation for a private company. All I need is to be listed as the engineer of record on Arden's internal maintenance log. Catherine Okafor can do that with a single signature. I don't need a license to fix your coolant loop. I need authorization. Dr. Yamada stared at him. Are you telling me that I can solve this problem with a piece of paper? I'm telling you that you can solve this problem with a piece of paper, a Sunday night, 2 weekend technicians I handpick, and about $6,000 in parts. In 1 weekend. In 1 weekend. If we plan it right. If Priya clears the floor. If Catherine gets me the authorization. And if Miss Hale gives me the budget. Dr. Yamada picked up her phone. She dialed a single number. Victoria. Kenji. Put Elias Carter on the Atlas coolant system as engineer of record effective immediately. He can fix it in a weekend. I need $6,000 in parts approval to shut Atlas down for 36 hours starting Saturday night at midnight, and Catherine Okafor on a signature within the hour. Yes, yes, I know what it means. Yes, I know Kestrel will be furious. That's the point. I want them furious. I want them to come to us. I want them on the phone screaming at our general counsel about warranty violations. And I want Catherine to be ready to tell them exactly where the preventive maintenance clause is in their own contract. Yes. Yes, Victoria. He's sure. She hung up. Elias? Yeah? Saturday night, midnight. You have 36 hours. If you fail, we lose Atlas. We lose 16 months of training data and I lose my job. No pressure. Kenji, I won't fail. How do you know? Because my daughter just found out her father is an engineer again, and I am not letting her find out on Monday that her father was fired before he even finished his first week. Dr. Yamada smiled for the second time that morning. Get to work, Mr. Carter. Yes, ma'am. She walked out of his office and closed the door behind her. Elias sat back down at his desk. He pulled the laptop toward him. He opened a new document and he began to type fast clean, without hesitation, a full mechanical specification for the replumb A parts list, a labor schedule, a risk assessment, and a contingency plan for every failure mode he could imagine. He worked for 6 hours without stopping. At 3:45 in the afternoon, Priya knocked on his door. Mr. Carter, the all-hands meeting is in 15 minutes. Miss Hale wants you in the main auditorium on the ground floor. I'll walk you down. Priya. Yes, sir. Who's going to be there? Every employee in the building who isn't on a client call. About 900 people. 900. Yes, sir. And what exactly am I supposed to do? I don't know, sir. Miss Hale didn't tell me. She just said to make sure you were there. He stood up. He straightened his tie. He followed Priya to the elevator. The auditorium was already full when they walked in. 900 faces turned toward the back of the room. Elias kept his eyes on the floor. Priya led him to the front row where a single empty seat waited next to Dr. Yamada. Victoria Hale was already on stage. She was holding a microphone. She didn't need notes. Ladies and gentlemen of Arden Systems, she said, and the room went quiet. 16 hours ago, at approximately 11:40 on a Monday night, a member of our maintenance staff walked into a server room on the 17th floor of this building. Our engineering team had been working on a critical fault in the Atlas platform for 4 consecutive days. They were by all reasonable metrics the best trained, best paid, and best resourced engineering team I have ever assembled in my career. She paused. They could not fix the problem. The room did not move. The man who walked into the room, Victoria continued, was not on the engineering team. He was not on any team. He was pushing a mop. His name is Elias Carter. He has worked in this building for 2 years and 4 months, during which time not one of us, and I include myself, first in this accusation, has ever once asked him his last name, looked him in the eye, or said good evening. He has been for all of us invisible. Elias felt every head in the room turn. He did not look up. Last night, Victoria said, that invisible man listened to our building, really listened, and in 90 seconds he diagnosed a mechanical fault that had eluded a team of 14 engineers for 96 hours. He then informed us respectfully that the reason our Atlas platform has been unstable since the day it was installed is that the contractor who built it put the bypass valve on the wrong side of the manifold. He told us how to fix it. He was right. The room began to murmur. Victoria raised a hand. This morning, she said, I spent 2 hours interviewing Mr. Carter. During that interview, I learned that he holds a dual degree in electrical engineering and computer systems from MIT. I learned that he was at one time a licensed professional engineer with 11 years of experience. And I learned that 8 years ago, a man he trusted destroyed his career by forging documents and assigning blame for a fatal industrial accident to him. Mr. Carter, in order to care for his dying wife and his 3-year-old daughter, signed a settlement he should not have signed and lost his license. He came to this city. He took the only job a man without a license could take in this industry. And for 2 years and 4 months every one of us walked past him without seeing him. The murmur was growing louder. That stops today. Victoria set the microphone down on a stand. She walked to the edge of the stage. Mr. Carter, please stand up. Elias did not move. Mr. Carter. Dr. Yamada put her hand on his arm. Elias, she whispered. Stand up. He stood up. 900 people looked at him. As of this morning, Victoria said, Mr. Elias Carter is the senior systems architect on the Atlas project, reporting to Dr. Kenji Yamada with full authority over the technical direction of our flagship product. As of this weekend, he will be leading the replumb of our primary cooling system, a project that will save this company somewhere in the neighborhood of $40 million over the next 5 years. She turned to face him directly. Mr. Carter, on behalf of every employee in this building who has ever walked past you without saying hello, I am sorry. I am deeply personally and institutionally sorry. And I promise you in front of every witness in this room that Arden Systems will spend the next however many years it takes making sure the world knows your name. She began to clap. One woman in the 3rd row stood up and clapped with her. Then a man in the 5th row. Then Dr. Yamada. Then Priya. Then Morrison 3 seats away crying openly and not caring who saw. Then the whole room. 900 people on their feet clapping for a man in a pale blue button-down with a frayed collar, a tie he had borrowed from his dead wife's closet and shoes he had polished that morning with a rag from under his kitchen sink. Elias Carter stood in the front row of the auditorium at Arden Systems with tears streaming silently down his face, and he thought about his daughter sitting in a middle school classroom across town, and he thought about Sarah, and he thought about Thomas Reyes and Michael Chen, who had died in a fire in the Nevada desert, because a man named Richard Vance had been too much of a coward to put his own name on his own work, and he made a promise to all of them at once. He was going to fix Atlas. He was going to bring Richard Vance down, and he was never ever going to be invisible again. The applause did not stop. It went on for 43 seconds. Priya would tell him later she had counted, and when it finally began to fade, Victoria Hale raised her hand one more time. Back to work, everyone. We have a product to ship. 900 people began to move, but not one of them left without looking at Elias Carter. Some nodded. Some smiled. A woman from the 3rd floor accounting department, a gray-haired lady in a pink cardigan, walked right up to him and put both of her hands over his without saying a word, and then kept walking. Elias sat back down in his chair because he did not trust his legs. Dr. Yamada leaned over. Elias. Yeah. You need to go home. I have work to do, Kenji. Saturday's coming. Saturday is 4 days away. You need to go home tonight. You need to eat dinner with your daughter. You need to sleep in a bed, and you need to show up here tomorrow morning at 8 o'clock, ready to lead. Do you understand me? Yes, ma'am. Priya, drive him home. Kenji. I can take the bus. Priya, drive him home. And Elias, tomorrow morning, stop at the men's store on 5th Avenue, the one next to the coffee shop. Ask for a man named Douglas. Tell him Kenji Yamada sent you. He's going to put you in 2 suits and 4 shirts, and he's going to put the bill on my personal card. Don't argue with me. Ma'am. Don't argue with me, Elias. You cannot lead a replumb of a $40 million cooling system in a borrowed tie. Go home. Kiss your daughter. I'll see you at 8. Priya drove a small silver Honda that smelled like peppermint, and she didn't say a word for the first 10 blocks. Elias watched the city slide past the window, not from the back of a bus this time, but from the front seat of a car driven by a woman who had called him sir all afternoon. Priya. Yes, Mr. Carter. You don't have to call me that. I know I don't. Then why do you... She glanced at him at a red light. Because my father would have wanted me to. He didn't answer. She drove him all the way to the apartment on 12th and Yesler, and when she pulled up in front of the building, she put the car in park and turned in her seat. Mr. Carter? Yeah. Tomorrow morning I want you to know you have an assistant now. That's me. Anything you need, scheduling, research, parts, orders, coffee, you call me. You don't walk the floor looking for it. You don't try to figure it out yourself. You pick up the phone and you say, Priya and I handle it. Are we clear? Priya, I've never had an assistant. I've figured that out, sir. He laughed. It came out rough. Okay. One more thing, Mr. Carter. Yeah, I know you don't believe this yet, but you earned this. I don't know what happened in Nevada 8 years ago. I don't care. What happened last night in that server room, that was you. Nobody else. You didn't get lucky. You didn't stumble onto it. You heard it because you know how to hear it, and you know how to hear it because you spent your whole life learning how to hear it. You earned this, Mr. Carter. Go upstairs and tell your daughter her father earned this." He sat there for a long moment, with his hand on the door handle. "Priya." "Sir." "Thank you." "Go on up, sir. I'll see you tomorrow." Lily was sitting on the floor of the living room when he walked in her back, against the couch homework spread out on the coffee table. She looked up, and he saw her take in the whole of him at once: the tie, the pale blue shirt, the polished shoes, the face of a man who had cried that afternoon and hadn't slept the night before. She didn't say anything. She stood up. She walked across the room. She put her arms around him and pressed her face into his chest. "Dad?" "Yeah, baby. It's real. It's real." She stayed like that for a long time. He could feel her shoulders shaking. When she finally stepped back, she wiped her eyes with the heel of her hand, the way she had always done since she was 4, and she looked up at him and tried to smile. "Dad?" "Yeah. Mrs. Alvarez made spaghetti." "Okay, baby." "And I did my homework." "Okay." "And Dad?" "Yeah. Can we go buy me a new backpack this weekend? Because mine has a hole in it, and I've been using tape for 2 months, and I didn't want to tell you." Elias Carter stood in the doorway of his apartment, and he felt something break open in his chest that he had been holding shut for 8 years. "Baby." "What, Dad?" "You can have any backpack in the world." "Dad, I just want one that doesn't leak." "Okay, sweetheart. Okay, we'll go tomorrow, after school. Deal." They ate spaghetti together at the small kitchen table that he had bought at a thrift store 3 years earlier for $14. She told him about her day. He told her about his. He did not tell her about Richard Vance. He did not tell her about Thomas Reyes. Those were for later, when she was older, when the story was finished. Tonight he told her about Priya and Dr. Yamada and Victoria Hale standing on a stage and saying his name. "Dad?" "Yeah." "You know what's weird?" "What, baby?" "I always knew you were smart. I always knew it. But I thought maybe only I knew it. And now a whole building of people know it. And it's weird. It's like finding out the rest of the world finally agrees with you about something important." He looked at his 11-year-old daughter across a $14 table in a 1-bedroom apartment, and he thought about how much smarter she was than he had any right to expect, and he thought about Sarah, and how Sarah would have been so proud she couldn't have stood it. "Lily." "Yeah." "Eat your spaghetti." "I am eating it, Dad." "I know. I just wanted to say your name." She grinned. "Weirdo." "Brat." "Dad?" "Yeah. I love you." "I love you too, baby. Now eat." He tucked her into bed at 9:30, and she was asleep before he finished reading the chapter. He turned off her lamp, kissed her forehead, and walked out into the living room, where he sat down on the couch and stared at the wall for 20 minutes without moving. His phone buzzed on the coffee table. An unknown number. Seattle area code. He looked at it for a long time, then he picked it up. "Hello." "Elias." Elias Carter went cold from the top of his head to the soles of his feet. "Vance?" "I heard you had a big day today, old friend." "I'm not your friend." Now, don't be like that. It's been, 8 years? We used to work together. We used to have drinks together. You remember Molly's, that place on 3rd? You always ordered the same thing. Whiskey neat. No ice. How is Sarah, by the way? She's still teaching. Sarah died 6 years ago, Richard. And if you didn't know that you're a worse man than I thought. And if you did know that you're exactly the man I remember. There was a pause on the other end of the line. When Richard Vance spoke again, the warmth was gone from his voice. "Listen to me very carefully, Elias. I don't know what Victoria Hale has told you, but I want you to understand something. I have been in this industry for 31 years. I have friends at the Department of Defense, at the SEC, at the State Bar of Nevada, and at 3 different federal agencies whose names I'm not going to say on an unsecured line. You are a former janitor with a settled professional misconduct case in 2 states. If you go anywhere near the file on the Nevada incident, if you so much as breathe the word Kestrel to a reporter, I will bury you so deep that your daughter will have to change her last name to find a job when she grows up. Do you understand me?" Elias stood up from the couch. He walked to the window. He looked down at the street, at the pawn shop where he had sold his wedding ring, at the diner where he had bought Lily slices of pie on payday, at the whole small grim world he had built out of the wreckage Richard Vance had made of his life. Richard. Yes, Elias. Do you remember Thomas Reyes? Another pause. I remember the name. He had a baby girl, Richard. She's 9 years old now. She has a picture of her father on her nightstand, and she talks to it every night before she goes to sleep. I know that because my employer is her mother's cousin, and my employer has been waiting 8 years to find the man who killed Thomas Reyes. And now she has found him. And it isn't me. Silence. Richard, are you still there? You're bluffing. No, I'm not. Victoria Hale is a businesswoman. She does not bet her company on a personal vendetta. She does not risk a public scandal over a cousin. You don't know her, Richard. I know her better than you do, Elias. I interviewed with her 4 years ago. And she didn't hire you. Did you ever ask yourself why? Silence. I'm going to hang up now, Richard. I'm not going to call you back. I'm not going to answer if you call me. If you have anything else to say to me, you can say it through my attorneys at Arden Systems. Their general counsel's name is Catherine Okafor. I'm sure your lawyers can find her. Elias, wait. Goodbye, Richard. Elias, your daughter. I know where your daughter goes to school. Elias Carter stopped breathing. For 3 full seconds he stood at the window with the phone pressed to his ear and a white heat rising behind his eyes that he had never felt in his life, and then he answered in a voice so quiet and so level he barely recognized it as his own. Richard, listen to me very carefully. If you or any person you have ever met in your life so much as drives past the front of Washington Middle School between now and the day you die, I will not go to the police. I will not go to the newspapers. I will come to your house at 2 o'clock in the morning, and I will introduce myself to you in a way you will not recover from. I have nothing left to lose that you haven't already taken, and I have a daughter who is the only thing left in this world that matters to me. Are we understanding each other? Richard Vance did not answer. Elias hung up the phone. He stood at the window with his hand shaking so hard he could not hold the phone steady. And then he sat down on the couch, and he put his face in his hands, and he did not move for a long time. At 10:47 he picked up the phone and called Catherine Okafor. She answered on the second ring. Ms. Okafor, Elias Carter, I apologize for calling this late. Mr. Carter, what's wrong? Richard Vance just called my cell phone. He threatened my daughter. Catherine Okafor said a word that Elias had never heard a general counsel say before. Mr. Carter, stay where you are. Do not leave your apartment. I'm calling Victoria now. Ma'am, I don't want a security detail parked in front of my building. My neighbors, Mr. Carter, I don't care what your neighbors think. I care what happens to your daughter. You will have 2 men in front of your building within the hour, and you will have 2 more at Washington Middle School before the first bell rings tomorrow morning. This is not negotiable. Yes, ma'am. Do you have the call recorded? No, ma'am. Can you write down every word he said, word for word, exactly as you remember it right now before you go to sleep? Yes, ma'am. Do that. Email it to me before midnight. I want a time-stamped record. Richard Vance just made the biggest mistake of his career, Mr. Carter, and I want every word of it on a piece of paper by tomorrow morning. Ma'am? Yes. He said he has friends at federal agencies. Mr. Carter, so do I. Go write your statement. I'll see you tomorrow. He wrote the statement sitting at the kitchen table while Lily slept in the next room. He wrote every word Richard Vance had said, and every word he had said back. At 11:42, men in dark coats rang the buzzer downstairs, and Elias let them into the lobby, and they showed him the identification cards from an Arden Systems security contractor and took up positions by the front door. At 11:58, he emailed the statement to Catherine Okafor. At midnight, his phone buzzed with a single text from her. Received. Sleep. We handle this. He did not sleep. He sat on the couch with the lights off and watched the door until the sky outside began to turn gray, and then he made coffee and then he woke Lily up for school. He did not tell her about the phone call. He walked her to the corner where her school bus stopped, and he pretended not to see the unmarked sedan parked across the street with two men inside it drinking coffee. "Dad?" "Yeah, baby." "You look tired." "I didn't sleep much, sweetheart." "Nervous about work?" "A little." "Dad?" "Yeah." "Don't be nervous. You already did the scary part." He kissed the top of her head, and he watched her climb onto the bus, and he watched the bus pull away, and he watched the unmarked sedan pull out behind it at a polite distance, and then he walked back to the apartment and put on the only suit he owned, an old gray one that Sarah had bought him for a wedding 12 years ago, and he rode the bus downtown one more time. The men's store on Fifth Avenue smelled like cedar and leather. The man named Douglas was 60 years old with a silver mustache and a tape measure around his neck. And when Elias said Kenji Yamada's name, he smiled and said, "Ah, Mr. Carter, we've been expecting you. Please come with me." An hour later, Elias walked out of that store in a charcoal gray suit that fit him the way clothes had not fit him in 8 years, carrying a bag with a second suit and 4 shirts and 2 ties that he had chosen himself. Douglas had taken his old gray wedding guest suit and folded it neatly into a separate bag. "Mr. Carter." "Yes?" "Your old suit. What would you like me to do with it?" Elias thought about it for a long moment. "Is there a shelter nearby? One that takes donations for men looking for work. 3 blocks east, on Pine Street. Would you send it there, please, with a note that says, 'Tell them to give it to a man who needs a second chance'?" "Yes, sir." He walked into Arden Systems at 8:03 in the morning, wearing a charcoal gray suit that fit him, and the security guard, Terrence, took one look at him and stood up from behind the front desk and saluted, not a military salute, but the kind of salute one man gives another when words are not enough. "Mr. Carter." "Terrence." "You look good, brother." "Thank you." "You got a visitor waiting for you upstairs. Dr. Yamada says to come straight up." The 14th floor was already full when he stepped out of the elevator. Morrison was waiting by his office door with a tablet in his hand and 2 cups of coffee. Priya was at a desk 10 feet away with 3 phones on her desk, 2 of them ringing. "Mr. Carter." "Morning, Priya." "Dr. Yamada is in your office. Ms. Okafor is in your office. Miss Hale will be in your office in 6 minutes. I made coffee. You're going to need it." "What's happening?" Richard Vance filed an emergency motion in federal court at 3:15 this morning. He's trying to enjoin Arden Systems from modifying the Atlas cooling system on the grounds that the modification will violate his company's installation warranty and expose Arden to $80 million in liability. He's trying to stop us from fixing it. Yes, sir. He's trying to let Atlas die. Yes, sir. That's exactly what he's trying to do. Elias walked into his office. Dr. Yamada was standing at the window. Catherine Okafor was on her phone, speaking fast and low into the receiver. A stack of legal filings an inch thick sat on his desk. "Elias." Dr. Yamada turned. "We have a problem." "I heard." "The hearing is tomorrow morning at 9. If the judge grants the injunction, we can't touch the system on Saturday. We lose Atlas. We lose everything." "Why is the hearing so fast?" "Because he has a friend on the federal bench in the Western District. He got expedited review. Catherine is still reading the motion, but he's making a credible argument. On paper, the modification does technically modify the installation, which does technically trigger the warranty clause. So what do we do?" Catherine Okafor lowered her phone. "Mr. Carter, I need you to get on a stand tomorrow morning and explain to a federal judge in plain English that a 64-year-old lawyer can understand why what you're going to do on Saturday is preventive maintenance and not modification. I need you to do it in less than 20 minutes. I need you to not lose your temper when Richard Vance's attorneys try to impeach you with your revoked Nevada license. And I need you to understand that if you fail, we lose the injunction, we lose Atlas, and we lose our ability to go after Richard Vance for what he did to you 8 years ago, because he will use the injunction as evidence in civil court that his company operated in good faith." "Ma'am?" "Yes, I can do that. Are you sure?" I spent 8 years mopping floors in this building because I didn't speak up for myself in a courtroom in Nevada. I am not making that mistake twice." Catherine Okafor looked at him for a long moment. "Mr. Carter, I'm going to be honest with you. I have been practicing law for 26 years. I have put a lot of engineers on the stand. Most of them cannot explain what they do to a jury of their peers, let alone a federal judge. If you can actually do what you just said you can do, then Richard Vance is in more trouble than he realizes. Ma'am, I've been explaining engineering to an 11-year-old girl every night for 8 years. A federal judge is not going to be harder than Lily." Dr. Yamada laughed out loud for the first time in the 3 days Elias had known her. "Elias, my God. Okay. Catherine, what do you need from us?" "I need Elias with me for the next 12 hours. We're going to prepare his testimony. We're going to run him through cross-examination at least 3 times, and we're going to have him in bed by 10. Kenji, I need you to continue the parts procurement and the weekend scheduling as if the injunction is not going to happen. If we lose tomorrow, we stand down. If we win tomorrow, I do not want to waste a single hour." Victoria Hale walked into the office at that moment, carrying a thin folder in her hand. She was wearing a black suit, and her face was the kind of still that Elias was beginning to recognize as the way Victoria Hale looked when she was furious beyond words. "Mr. Carter." "Ma'am." "Catherine has filled you in." "Yes, ma'am." "Good." She held up the folder. "I want you to see something before we begin." She opened it and laid it flat on his desk. It was a transcript, dated 6 months earlier. A conversation recorded at a bar in Reno, Nevada. The speaker was identified by his initials RV, and he was drunk, and he was talking about a man named Carter. And the things he said in that transcript were things Elias had never in 8 years allowed himself to imagine. Richard Vance had not just signed the report and walked away. He had designed the lie. He had rehearsed it in front of a mirror. He had fabricated the emails over a weekend in his home office. He had paid a technician at the fabrication shop $3,000 in cash to say on record that Elias had personally instructed him to ignore the safety protocols. He had, according to his own drunken testimony, celebrated the settlement by taking his then-mistress to Napa Valley for a long weekend. And in the last paragraph of the transcript, Richard Vance had said to a man he believed was a stranger at a bar, "The best part is Carter's wife was dying. Ovarian cancer. He wasn't going to fight it. I picked him because he couldn't afford to fight it. That's the trick, friend. You never frame a man who has something left to lose. You frame a man who's already losing everything. He won't even see it coming." Elias read the paragraph 3 times. He did not cry. He did not speak. He closed the folder. He looked up at Victoria Hale. "Ma'am?" "Yes, Mr. Carter." "When do I testify?" 9 o'clock tomorrow morning. Federal Courthouse on Stewart Street, Judge Eleanor Mbeki presiding. "I'll be ready." "I know you will." She picked up the folder and handed it to Catherine Okafor. "Catherine, teach him everything you know in the next 12 hours. Elias, when you walk into that courtroom tomorrow morning, I want you to remember one thing." "Yes, ma'am." "Thomas Reyes is watching. Your wife is watching. And your daughter is going to read the transcript of your testimony someday when she's old enough, and she is going to know exactly who her father is." Elias Carter straightened his tie. "Yes, ma'am." "Now get to work." They worked in the conference room on the 41st floor until 9:47 that night. Catherine Okafor was a small woman with a big voice and a law degree from Yale, and by 6 o'clock she had run Elias through his direct testimony 4 times. By 7, she had switched chairs and become Richard Vance's attorney, and she had cross-examined him with a cruelty so precise that twice Elias had to stop and close his eyes before answering. "Mr. Carter, isn't it true that your professional engineering license was revoked in Nevada in 2018 on grounds of professional misconduct resulting in the deaths of 2 men?" "Yes, ma'am." "And isn't it true that you signed a settlement in which you accepted responsibility for that misconduct?" "Yes, ma'am." Then why should this court believe a single word that comes out of your mouth about anything related to industrial engineering? Elias took a breath. "Because, ma'am, I signed that settlement when my wife was dying of ovarian cancer, and my daughter was 3 years old." I signed it because I couldn't afford a lawyer. I signed it because the man who actually designed that system told me that if I fought back, his attorneys would drag the case out for 4 years and my wife would die with a lawsuit on the family name. I didn't sign that settlement because I was guilty. I signed it because I was a husband and a father before I was an engineer, and on the day I had to choose, I chose my wife and my daughter. Catherine sat back. Good, Elias. Very good. But you said the man who actually designed that system. Don't say that on the stand. You don't have standing to accuse anyone by name tomorrow. You're there to testify about the cooling system. You stay on the cooling system. You do not attack Richard Vance in that courtroom. Let me do that, in a different courtroom, on a different day. Are we clear? Yes, ma'am. Run it again, from the top. They ran it again, and again. At 9:45, Catherine finally closed her laptop. Mr. Carter, you're ready. Am I? You're ready. Go home, hug your daughter. Sleep if you can. I'll pick you up at 7 in the morning. Priya drove him home a second time. She did not say much. When she pulled up in front of his building, she turned in her seat and looked at him the way a sister looks at a brother going off to war. Mr. Carter. Yeah, Priya. My father used to say that every man has one morning in his life that decides who he's going to be for the rest of it. That sounds like something your father would say. Tomorrow is yours, Mr. Carter. I know it is. Good night, sir. Good night, Priya. He rode the elevator up to the second floor. He unlocked the apartment. Lily was asleep on the couch with her homework open on her lap, and a blanket half pulled up to her shoulders. He stood in the doorway and watched her breathe for a long moment, and he thought about all the nights he had come home at 1 in the morning and found her asleep exactly like that, and he thought about how many more nights like this were waiting on the other side of tomorrow. He picked her up and carried her to her bedroom. She stirred but didn't wake. He tucked her in, kissed her forehead, and whispered something into her hair that he had never said to her out loud. Baby, tomorrow your daddy's going to finish what your mother started. She didn't hear him, but he said it anyway. He was on the couch in his pajamas at 11 o'clock when his phone buzzed one more time. A single text from Victoria Hale's personal cell. Elias. Thomas Reyes was buried on a Thursday, 8 years ago. His daughter was 18 months old. She's 9 now. She doesn't remember him. Tomorrow, you do something about that. Sleep well. V. He slept. Somehow, he slept. At 7 in the morning, Catherine Okafor's black Lincoln pulled up in front of his building. He was ready. The federal courthouse on Stewart Street was a building Elias had never been inside. He walked up the steps in his charcoal gray suit, and Catherine walked beside him, and when they passed through the metal detector at the front door, she put a hand on his arm. Elias. Yeah. Look at me. He looked at her. You are not the man you were in Nevada 8 years ago. You are a senior systems architect at Arden Systems. You have 2 degrees from MIT. You diagnosed a fault in 90 seconds that your entire team missed for 4 days. When Richard Vance's attorney asks you a question, you do not answer it as a former janitor. You answer it as an engineer. Do you understand me? Yes, ma'am. Let's go. The courtroom was smaller than he had expected. Wood paneling, tall windows, a single flag behind the judge's bench. Richard Vance was already seated at the plaintiff's table, whispering with 2 attorneys in dark suits. He did not turn around when Elias walked in. He did not need to. The back of his silver head was enough to make Elias's hands go cold. Catherine guided him to the defense table. Dr. Yamada was there. Victoria Hale was 2 rows behind them in the gallery, her face unreadable. All rise. The Honorable Eleanor Mbeki presiding. Judge Mbeki was a black woman in her early 60s with gray hair cut close to her skull and reading glasses on a silver chain around her neck. She sat down, looked at both tables, and said without preamble, Counsel, I have read the briefs. I want to hear testimony. Mr. Vance, you're the movant. Call your first witness. Richard Vance's lead attorney stood up. He was a tall man with a thin mouth and an expensive watch. Your Honor, we call Mr. Richard Vance. Richard Vance walked to the stand. He was sworn in. He sat down, and he looked at the judge with a face full of practiced regret, and he told his story. He had installed the Atlas cooling system 18 months earlier under a $22 million contract. The installation met every specification required by the design documents. Any modification by a party other than Kestrel would void the warranty. He had personally reviewed the proposed modification, and in his professional opinion, it was reckless, unnecessary, and would likely cause catastrophic damage to the system within the first 6 months. He was not here to harm Arden Systems. He was here to protect them from themselves. It was a good performance. Elias had to admit, it was a good performance. Catherine stood up to cross-examine him. She spent 11 minutes establishing the terms of the original contract, the scope of the warranty, and the specific language of the preventive maintenance clause. Richard Vance answered every question calmly. Then Catherine asked one more question almost as an afterthought. "Mr. Vance, the bypass valve on the secondary manifold. What side of the primary heat load was it installed on?" Richard Vance hesitated. "I would have to review the installation documents." "I have them here, Mr. Vance. Shall I show them to you?" "That's not necessary. It was installed according to specification." "Which side, Mr. Vance?" "Downstream." "And is downstream the industry standard for bypass valve placement?" "Industry standards vary." "Mr. Vance, I'm going to ask you again. Is downstream the industry standard for bypass valve placement on a secondary manifold in a closed-loop cooling system?" "No." "No. Thank you, Mr. Vance. No further questions." Richard Vance stepped down from the witness stand, and as he walked past the defense table, he looked at Elias for the first time in 8 years, and he smiled. It was a small, cold smile, the kind of smile a man gives another man when he has decided that he is going to enjoy destroying him. Elias did not smile back. He did not look away either. "The defense calls Mr. Elias Carter." He stood up. He walked to the witness stand. He placed his hand on the Bible. He said, "I do." He sat down. Catherine walked to the podium. "Mr. Carter, please state your full name and current position for the record." "Elias Miller Carter, Senior Systems Architect, Arden Systems." "And how long have you held that position?" 3 days, ma'am." Judge Mbeki looked up over her reading glasses. 3 days. "Yes, Your Honor." "And what did you do before that, Mr. Carter?" "For the last 2 years and 4 months, Your Honor. I was a member of the maintenance staff at the same company. I mopped the floors." The judge set down her pen. "Counselor." "Yes, Your Honor." "You're telling me that your expert witness on the Atlas cooling system is a janitor who was promoted 3 days ago." "Your Honor, I'm telling you that our expert witness on the Atlas cooling system is a man with a dual degree in electrical engineering and computer systems from the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, 11 years of professional engineering experience, and an instinct for mechanical systems that this court is about to see for itself. His current title is incidental to his qualifications. If the court will permit me 10 minutes, I believe Mr. Carter will earn his place at this stand." Judge Mbeki looked at Elias for a long moment. 10 minutes, Ms. Okafor. Proceed." "Mr. Carter, in your own words, explain to this court what you found in the Arden Systems server room on the night of Monday, April 13th. Elias took a breath. He did not look at Richard Vance. He did not look at Victoria Hale. He did not look at the attorneys at the plaintiff's table. He looked at Judge Eleanor Mbeki, and he imagined for just a moment that she was his daughter, sitting at their $14 kitchen table, asking him to explain what he did for a living. "Your Honor, every machine in the world is trying to tell you what's wrong with it. Most people don't know how to listen. On the night of April 13th, I walked past a server room that had been running a cooling system for 18 months, and I heard a sound that should not have been there. A pulse. 2 beats. A pause. 1 beat. That sound is called cavitation. It happens when air gets into a cooling line and the pump can't push water smoothly anymore. Cavitation left untreated destroys pumps. It destroys impellers. Eventually, it destroys the equipment the cooling system is supposed to protect. On April 13th, the Atlas platform was 4 days away from a catastrophic failure, that would have cost Arden Systems approximately $50 million in direct losses and an additional $40 million in delayed contract deliverables. I told the engineering team what I was hearing. I told them where to look. Within 3 minutes of opening the service panel, they confirmed I was correct. Mr. Carter, what caused the cavitation? The bypass valve on the secondary manifold was installed on the wrong side of the primary heat load, downstream instead of upstream. The installation violates no federal regulation, but it violates the standard practice of every major industrial cooling contractor in North America. It creates a condition where the control system is always a half-second behind the thermal load, and over time, the pressure differential produces air in the return line. That air is what I heard on the night of April 13th. Mr. Carter, in your professional opinion, is the replumb of the bypass valve a modification of the system or preventive maintenance of the system? Your Honor, under the definition used by the American Society of Mechanical Engineers, a modification is any change that alters the operational parameters of a system beyond its original design specification. Preventive maintenance is any intervention that restores a system to the operational parameters originally specified. The original design document for the Atlas cooling system, which I have reviewed, calls for the bypass valve to be installed upstream. The installation was done downstream. The replumb I have proposed for this weekend restores the system to the configuration described in the original design document. It is not a modification. It is a correction. It is by any reasonable definition preventive maintenance. Judge Mbeki was taking notes now. Fast. Mr. Carter, one more question. You have heard the movant Mr. Richard Vance testify that the proposed replumb would likely cause catastrophic damage to the system within 6 months. What is your response to that testimony? Elias looked down at his hands. Then he looked up, and he looked Richard Vance directly in the eye for the first time in 8 years. Your Honor, Mr. Vance knows that the installation was done incorrectly because Mr. Vance personally signed off on the installation. Mr. Vance also knows that the replumb will stabilize the system because the replumb restores the system to the configuration he himself originally signed as approved. Mr. Vance's testimony this morning is not based on engineering. It is based on the fact that if this court allows the replumb to proceed, Arden Systems will no longer have a reason to bring Kestrel Industrial Solutions back to this building for the emergency repairs that are currently scheduled to occur every 6 to 8 weeks for the next 5 years, at a cost to Arden of approximately $400,000 per visit. Mr. Vance is not trying to protect anyone this morning. Mr. Vance is trying to protect a revenue stream. The courtroom went very quiet. Richard Vance's lead attorney stood up. Objection, Your Honor. Speculation. Judge Mbeki did not even look at him. Overruled. Mr. Carter, continue. I have nothing further to add, Your Honor. Ms. Okafor. Any more questions? Just one, Your Honor. Mr. Carter, are you willing to put your professional reputation on the line by leading this replumb this weekend and by guaranteeing in writing that the Atlas system will operate within its original design parameters for the full duration of the original warranty? Yes, ma'am, I am. Thank you, Mr. Carter. No further questions. Richard Vance's lead attorney stood up to cross-examine. He tried. He really tried. He spent 16 minutes trying to impeach Elias with the Nevada settlement, with the revoked license, with the 8 years of silence. Elias answered every question the way Catherine had taught him to answer them, calmly, briefly, without apology. When the attorney asked him why this court should trust an engineer whose license had been revoked for professional misconduct, Elias looked at Judge Mbeki and said, Your Honor, 8 years ago, I signed a document I should not have signed under circumstances I have already described in my deposition. I accept responsibility for that signature. But no signature in Nevada 8 years ago changes the laws of thermodynamics in Seattle today. The air in the cooling line does not care what is written on my professional license. The pump does not care. The impeller does not care. Either the engineering is correct or it is not. Mr. Vance's engineering is not correct. Mine is. This court can have my work reviewed by any independent engineering firm in the country before Saturday morning, and the result will be the same. That is the only thing that matters. Judge Mbeki took off her reading glasses. Mr. Carter, step down. Elias stepped down. Counsel, I am going to take a 20-minute recess, and then I am going to rule from the bench. Be ready. She stood up and walked out of the courtroom. Elias sat back down at the defense table. His legs were shaking. Catherine Okafor put her hand on his back. Elias. Yeah, that was the best expert testimony I have ever heard in my life. I don't care if we win or lose. That was the best testimony I have ever heard. Did I do all right? You did better than all right, Elias. You told the truth. And you did it in a way a federal judge could hear it. I don't think you understand what you just did. Behind them, Victoria Hale leaned forward across the railing. Mr. Carter? He turned. Her eyes were wet. She did not say anything else. She just reached her hand across the railing, and he took it, and she squeezed his fingers once hard and let go. 23 minutes later, Judge Eleanor Mbeki returned to the bench. Be seated. Everyone sat. I have considered the arguments presented by both parties. I have considered the testimony of Mr. Vance, and I have considered the testimony of Mr. Carter. I find Mr. Carter's testimony credible, specific, and supported by the underlying engineering documentation. I find Mr. Vance's testimony to be a transparent attempt to preserve a commercial relationship that is no longer justified by the quality of the work performed. The motion for preliminary injunction is denied. Arden Systems is free to proceed with the replumb of the Atlas cooling system this weekend. Furthermore, based on the testimony I have heard this morning, I am referring the matter of Kestrel Industrial Solutions' original installation to the United States Attorney's Office for the Western District of Washington for a review of potential federal fraud in the original contract performance. Counsel will submit copies of all installation documents to my clerk by Monday morning. We are adjourned. The gavel came down. Elias Carter sat at the defense table with both hands flat on the wood, and he did not move for a long moment. And then he felt Catherine Okafor's hand on his shoulder, and he heard Dr. Yamada laughing behind him, and he heard Victoria Hale saying something quietly to a reporter who had appeared at the back of the room, and he understood finally that it was over. They walked out of the courthouse together. Richard Vance and his attorneys were already gone. On the steps, Victoria Hale stopped and turned to face him. Mr. Carter. Ma'am, you have until Monday morning to save Atlas. Yes, ma'am? Go do it. He did it. He did it with Kyle Morrison and 2 weekend technicians he handpicked. They started at midnight on Saturday. They finished at 4 in the morning on Monday. The replumb held. The pump stabilized within 6 hours of restart. The Atlas platform came back online at 9:17 on Monday morning, and by noon, Dr. Yamada was running training jobs at full capacity for the first time in 16 months. The investigation into Richard Vance took 4 months. In August, the United States Attorney's Office for the Western District of Washington indicted him on 7 counts of federal wire fraud, 2 counts of falsification of safety records, and 1 count of criminal negligence, resulting in death. The indictment was based in large part on the transcript of a conversation he had conducted at a bar in Reno, Nevada, 6 months before Elias Carter had ever walked into Victoria Hale's server room. He pleaded guilty in October to avoid trial. He was sentenced to 11 years in federal prison. Kestrel Industrial Solutions was dissolved in the civil settlement that followed, and its assets were distributed to the families of Thomas Reyes and Michael Chen. The Reyes family received, among other things, a scholarship fund in Thomas's name, established by Arden Systems, and administered by a committee of 3 people: Victoria Hale, Dr. Kenji Yamada, and Elias M. Carter. The first scholarship was awarded in the spring to a 9-year-old girl named Sophia Reyes for her college tuition to be held in trust until she was 18. Sophia did not know Elias Carter. Elias Carter insisted on remaining anonymous on the scholarship committee, though Victoria Hale insisted gently that someday Sophia would read the paperwork and find his name. In June, Elias and Lily moved into a 3-bedroom house in a quiet neighborhood on the north side of the city, with a small yard and a maple tree and a real desk for Lily, In a room she got to paint any color she wanted. She chose teal. On the last day of 6th grade, Lily came home with a folded piece of paper in her hand. "Dad." "Yeah, baby." "I wrote something." "What did you write?" "For English class. We had to write about a hero. I want you to read it." He unfolded the paper. It was an essay, typed, 3 pages long, double-spaced. The title was, "My Father the Engineer." He read it at the kitchen table, while she watched him chewing the end of her pencil, the way Sarah used to chew the end of her pencils when she was nervous. He read it all the way through, and then he read it a second time. And when he looked up, his eyes were full of tears. "Lily." "Yeah, Dad. This is the best thing anybody has ever written about me." "Is it true?" "Every word, even the part about how you saved the company. Even that part, baby. Even the part about how you're the smartest person I know." "That part might be a little generous." "Dad?" "Yeah. You're the smartest person I know." He set the essay down. He reached across the table and took his daughter's hand. "Lily." "Yeah. Your mother would be so proud of you." "Dad." "Yeah. She'd be proud of you too. She always was. Even when you were mopping floors, she always was." Elias Carter sat at a kitchen table in a house he owned, holding the hand of the only person left in the world who had known him before, and he thought about a hum in a server room on a Monday night 8 months ago. And he thought about a blue-collar shirt with a frayed collar. And he thought about a CEO who had said his name in front of 900 people. And he thought about a federal judge who had looked at him over her reading glasses and heard the truth in his voice. He had not just fixed Atlas. He had not just cleared his name. He had not just put Richard Vance in a federal prison where Richard Vance belonged. He had done something harder than all of those things. He had become again the man his wife had married, the man his daughter had always believed in, the man his father had raised him to be, in a garage in Tacoma, teaching him to listen to a machine the way you listen to a friend who is trying to tell you something important. And somewhere on a cold Thursday 8 years ago, a young man named Thomas Reyes had been buried in a cemetery outside of Reno, and his daughter Sophia had been 18 months old, and a lie had been told that destroyed the lives of 3 families at once. That lie was over now. The truth had taken 8 years to find its way home. But it had come home. It had come home through the hands of an invisible man in a blue maintenance jacket who had refused to stay invisible. It had come home through the courage of a woman named Victoria Hale, who had waited 8 years to hear her cousin's name spoken in a federal courtroom. It had come home through a little girl named Lily, who had never not once stopped believing in her father. And on a warm evening in June, in a kitchen in a house in Seattle, Elias Carter folded up an essay titled, "My Father the Engineer," and he placed it carefully in a drawer next to a photograph of a woman named Sarah, and he closed the drawer, and he turned off the kitchen light, and he walked into the living room to sit on the couch next to his daughter and watch the sunset through the window of a home he had earned twice in one lifetime. He had been lost. He had been found. And this time he was not going anywhere.